Hi everyone. So this is a walkthrough tutorial. This is the first recording that I'm doing this semester for setting up the software that's going to be necessary for the spring semester of 2021 for the C# class at Rankin Technical College. And so what we're going to be doing is we're just going to follow this little installation guide of different pieces of software that you will need throughout this semester. And so this document is called Setting Up Your Environment. It's found on Inside Rankin, and so I believe everyone to this point has already done the first step. If you're watching this live, as many of you are, I know you've already installed Discord and you've joined the Discord server, which is the virtual classroom. And now what we're going to do is we're going to walk through the rest of these software installs. And I'll kind of explain them along the way, what each piece is. The first piece is install Notepad++. And so what Notepad++ is most people are familiar with Notepad, which is just a low, it's a low end, I guess you would call it, text editor. Okay, so like Microsoft Word would be more of a high end text editor. Notepad is a low end text editor. Well, then Notepad++ is a text editor also that can be used for code, right? So you can write, although most people really don't use it for that, but you can write code in Notepad++, but it's essentially it's a little bit higher end than Notepad, but it's definitely not as feature rich as Microsoft Word. But it's also geared towards a little bit more towards coders. Okay, and so we don't use Notepad++ a ton in this semester, but here you can kind of see we do use it today as we go through this installer. So before we install Notepad++, now that I've explained that it's basically a fancy notepad, and we're not going to use it a ton, the first recommendation is that you install an ad blocker. Okay, if you don't have an ad blocker built into your web browser, so I use Google Chrome. Maybe I should add Google Chrome to this installer guide that Edge, Microsoft Edge is a good browser. It's come a long way from Internet Explorer. But my favorite's Chrome. I've considered, I'm just pretty much locked into the Google ecosystem. So, I've considered switching browsers at times, but I always wind up coming back to Chrome. So check out Google Chrome. If you've never used Google Chrome, I'm a fan. Inside of Google Chrome, then, it's good to have an ad blocker, just, prevent pop-ups before you install Notepad. And so here's the URL. I'm going to hold down Control, and that's going to pop open this link in its own tab. And so I'm not exactly sure what the Stand with Hong Kong version of Notepad is. I have no, I don't know if that's political or what. I have no political ties either way on that. Might be a good thing, that might not, depending on your point of view. I don't know. But I'm just going to select one that has no political ties. This seems neutral to me. So we're just going to stay neutral today. Notepad 7.8.8. Although 7.9, we're going to go 7.8.8. Okay, little notification about cookies, no problem. You're storing my information. Okay, I'm gonna click on download. And I'm gonna stick this in my downloads folder. And you can actually see I already have downloaded this back here in November of 2020. I installed this same version of Notepad. So I'm probably going to click on save, and it's going to say, hey, you already have this here? It sure does. Do you want to replace it? And I say, okay, yeah, let's go ahead and replace it. I didn't really need to download it again, is basically what that boils down to. Okay, you probably don't have that there already. Now what I did is I uninstalled all this software for the point of this demonstration. So it's going to ask me, do you want to allow this app to make changes? I'm going to click on yes. And pretty much we're going to go defaults. I'm going to click OK. Read everything, click next. You got to do the matrix style of reading right here. Definitely, I'm just like all of you. I read all of my terms and conditions, matrix style, and click next. I'm pretty much accepting the defaults here. Okay, you can go ahead and choose to run Notepad, that's fine. Okay, again, this is Notepad++. It's a fancy Notepad. You can use it to write code. You can use it for quick edits. Don't use it a ton in this class, but we do use it a little bit. An update package is available. Do you want to download it? I'm just going to say no for now. Maybe later. Okay, so I've installed Notepad++. So far, so good. The next thing to download is called Git. And you might be unfamiliar with Git, especially if you're a new student. If you're a returning student, no doubt you're a little familiar with Git. Let me explain what Git is. Okay, matter of fact, I'll start by holding down Control, opening this link. Okay, Git is version control. Git is an industry standard way for writing and sharing code and having multiple versions of your code. Okay, so every time you make changes to your code, you can save multiple versions. Think of it like you're writing your resume, and you can write multiple versions of your resume. And every time you write a new resume, instead of overwriting your old resume, you save a new version of your resume. So you have the new edition and you have the old version. Okay? You could also think of it as when you're playing video games and you make save files, and you save your point in the game throughout multiple different locations in the game. That way, if you want to go back in the game and kind of go backwards, you can do that. Well, in software development, you can do the same thing. You can write new code, and if you decide that the code that you wrote is bad or has bugs, or maybe you don't need it, you can revert back to an older version. Okay, so that's why it's called version control. You can write multiple versions of your software. Okay, so it's an industry standard. This is absolutely used in software development every day by developers as a core tool. It came out, I don't even 10 years ago. Like, I'd have to look at the Wikipedia. Initial release 2005, so a little bit more than 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Okay, so in the span of software development goes back a lot more than 15 years, but this is an industry standard. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to use Git to submit work in this class. You're going to keep all of your work online, and Git is the technology that's used for version control of software. Okay, it's also used for collaboration amongst teams. So multiple team members can work together and write software together. So again, huge. It's just very core to the industry. GitHub is different than Git. Okay, Git is the technology that allows for version control. GitHub is a website that allows you to store your code on. So you can think of GitHub as the Google Drive for code, okay? But you use Git to take your work and put it onto GitHub. Okay, so you use Git as the technology to put your work, to take it from your computer and submit it to GitHub. GitHub is just the website that stores your files. Okay, so hopefully I did a decent job explaining the difference between Git and GitHub. Okay, but what we're going to do is we're going to download Git. And I've got a 64-bit computer, so it automatically determined what installer file I need. You can see that back here in November, I installed version 2.29. So now today I'm downloading 2.30, so that's a good thing. So let's do that. We've got a slightly newer version of Git that I'm going to install. I'm going to click Next here. Default path. And it says it already exists. Well, I already installed this once. You're probably not going to get this. Do you want to install anyway? I'm going to say yes. What components do you want? I'm just going to select the default components. Default option here. Now this is one thing here. That if we're ever going to change settings in Git, I want to use Notepad++ to change my settings. It even says here, Notepad++ is a popular GUI editor that can be used by Git. So this is one change that I am going to make. This is on the, this is circled on the installer file to make that change. It's not going to end the world if you don't make that change, but let's just follow the guide here. Use Notepad++ as a default Git editor, and then we're just going to stay defaults the rest of the way. Let Git decide. This is fine. Open SSL is fine. Default, default, default. Default. Sure, we'll use the new Git credential manager. Hopefully that will help us. So that was the Git credential manager is now a radio button here. In the old Git 2.21, this is 2.30, the options have changed a little bit. So we used to check that box, but now it's kind of a default. So that's good. So we don't have to check the box anymore. Enable experimental support. I don't think we need experimental support. All right. And again, you can be following along at home doing the same thing. Okay, so Git itself is a command line tool. And so, yeah, sure, we can view release notes, but we're just going to close these down. Okay, there's the release notes for Git. So Git itself, like if you were to search for, Git, it's going to recommend Git bash. Okay, and so it opens up a command prompt, and so all you can really do is type here, right? Think of the old days of DOS and give it commands. And so if you wanted to learn the commands for Git, which is again is a command line tool, you should and you will do that in your educational process. Okay, But being that this is a first semester class and I'm just trying to give you exposure to Git and exposure to GitHub, I'm trying to get you somewhat comfortable with it. Learning the command prompt is going to be a much longer process than using a GUI. And what a GUI stands for is a graphical interface. And so there is something here called Git GUI, okay, that we could use. So this could be explored. You could use this GUI instead of using the command prompt. There's another GUI that I've used and that I'm very much more familiar with. And so basically what I'm kind of getting at is that there's options here. If you wanted to learn the command prompt, or if you wanted to use this Git GUI, again, GUI stands for Graphical User Interface. That's what Graphical User Interface. Okay, Git is the technology that transfers files from your computer to like GitHub, for example. You could use this Git GUI, but there is another tool. Now that we're done with Git, there's another tool here that is a different GUI that's called Tortoise Git. Okay, so that's what this next step is. We're going to download Tortoise Git. And what's nice about Tortoise Git is that it's built into Windows. And so, for example, when you right-click the desktop, you'll see some Tortoise Git options here once we get Tortoise Git installed. And actually, they got Git GUI here. So again, if you wanted to use this tool, you could. But quite honestly, we're going to wind up using Visual Studio. I'm just installing these additional tools should we need them. So again, what Tortoise Git is a graphical user interface, what they say a Windows shell. That's your GUI to Git. So let's go ahead and download Tortoise Git. Now, if you have a 32-bit Windows, or what I should say, your operating system is 32-bit. I know mine is 64-bit. So the way to find that out, if you type in sysinfo off of start, you can see your system information here. I got Windows 10. And let me find my processor information. So here's my processor information. That doesn't tell me enough. There's probably an easier way. Let me type in this PC. If I type in this PC, right-click, properties. There we go. See, here's okay, I'm going to do this again because this system info, I can find it in here if I do some digging. I might be overlooking it, but I'm going to show you an easier way. If you go here and type in this PC, right-click and go to Properties. It brings up this window here. You can see your system type is a 64-bit operating system and a 64-bit processor. Okay, so you're either 64-bit or 32-bit. So that's how I know that my operating system is 64-bit. Therefore, I know to click on the 64-bit of Windows. Again, I've downloaded this already. So it's just going to re-download it, which is fine. Again, I had to uninstall this for the purpose of this demonstration, so I'm just going to click on OK. I'm going to click on this and let's let it open up. Okay. So this is going to be defaults as well during the installer. Do my matrix read there. Do you want to make changes to your device? I selected yes. run the first start wizard. Okay, now down here, when prompted for your name, email address, use your real name and your school email. So let's see if we come across that. So we're running this first start wizard, and at some point it's going to ask us our name here. So welcome to Tortoise Git. It's going to find the default location of Git. Basically, when we installed Git, this is the path to it on our computer. This is where you put your name and your school's email address. The syntax is going to be your first name underscore last name at insiderankin.org for your school's email. First name underscore last name at insiderankin.org. It's basically your username at insiderankin.org. Your username for Inside Rankin is the same thing that you use for your email. All right, we're just going to click on Finish. Okay, we're going to click on Finish here. Okay, now that you have Git and Tortoise Git installed, we need to make some small configuration changes. Right-click your desktop, select Tortoise Git and Settings. So I'm going to go to my desktop, right-click, Tortoise Git, Settings. Select Git, verify your name is your name and you've got your school email. Select the Git credential, open settings, then set the credential helper to manager Windows all users. So let me explain what this is doing. We're going to use Tortoise Git basically to send our files from our computer to GitHub, like your homework and your tests and everything. You're going to turn it into GitHub using either Tortoise Git or Visual Studio. Okay. In order to do that, we're going to have to create an account on github.com with a username and password. And we're going to have to enter that github.com username and password into Tortoise Git. This is going to help Tortoise Git remember our github.com username and password. Okay, so that we don't have to type this in repetitively over and over every time we want to use Tortoise Git. So let's do this. Git credentials, so we're going to select Git. Git's on the left-hand side right here. I'm going to click OK. There's my name. There's that. So that's all correct. Under credential, now it says to use this credential helper and to select something. This credential helper to select manager all Windows users. Okay, and that's not there to select by default. What you have to do is you have to click on this open settings. Let's click on open settings. Okay, and once you do that, now you have that option. Windows credentials, all Windows users. So I'm sorry, manager all Windows users. So let's find manager all Windows users. I'm going to click on apply. Then I'm going to click on OK. Then I'm going to click on OK. So now if I go back into Tortoise Git settings, and if I click back on credential, it'll say manager all Windows users here under the credential helper. So that is Tortoise Git. Okay, next thing is we do need to install Visual Studio Community. Visual Studio Community is the main tool that we're using. Okay, so this is like, the tool that we're going to be in all semester long. You can hold down Control and click this link, and it takes you to a download for Visual Studio. And I'm going to save this file in my downloads folder. This is the tool that we're going to write C# in. Click on yes. Okay, now what's going to wind up happening is this is going to wind up being a decent sized download. And once we get this started, might be a good time for like a 10-minute break to let everyone kind of finish their downloads and get the thing installing. But let's just kind of let this tick through a little bit to get the ball rolling, because it can take a minute. Now, one question that I got already today is this a different enough tool than Visual Studio Code? And the answer is yes. This is a different enough tool. So the main option that we want to select, you can always come back to this screen. So if you miss anything or if you misselect something, that's fine. But the main thing that we're doing here is desktop development. If you remember yesterday, desktop development is what we're doing in this class. So I'm going to select this option. Okay, again, you can always come back and check other boxes, but you'll notice it's a good size download, 6 gigs. Okay, we're going to select install while downloading, and you're off. Okay, so I'm going to pause the recording here because there's no point in just letting the recording watch a download. So let's pause. Okay, we are back from a download, and I tell you what, I anticipated this to go longer. I don't know, 5 gigs just doesn't take a long time to download anymore, I guess. I am, I'm guessing some people are still waiting based on the chat. That's funny. I have, just so you guys know as the class, I've got a charter internet connection, which I pay for like extra bandwidth, even though I don't really think the extra money is worth it. So I get 400 meg to the house. And then I've got a high-end router that's about a year old that's wired anyways. And so I've got wire all the way to my computer. So I tell you guys this because I generally don't have too many technical glitches. If Charter does have issues, as they've had in the past, I can use my phone as a hotspot, as kind of a backup, and get internet connection through my phone. And my internet provider through my phone is AT&T. So I've got Charter as an internet provider, and I've got AT&T as an internet provider. Typically, both of those things don't fail. Now, I've got also multiple computers, and so I operate on my Asus Aspire Nitro Black Edition, whatever laptop. It's a nice high-end laptop. But I've also got a nice high-end desktop, and I've got a backup laptop. So no shortage of... I'm telling you all this because I've got redundancies built in so that I should not I should have less technical glitches. Okay, I'm not going to say that I won't have technical glitches because that's like asking for Murphy to, come knocking at your door. Murphy's Law. So anyway, so here we are. Visual Studio's installed. Let's launch. Visual Studio for the first time. Welcome. Let's go ahead and sign in. No account. Go ahead and create one. I should have one. And it's going to ask you to sign in with a Microsoft account. Now, my work account is a Microsoft account, so I'm just going to use my work credentials to log in. Now you're going to have to go ahead and create an account, but again, I can just use my work account. Okay, now the installer is pretty much done at this point. I can close that, close my tabs, close Tortoise Git. And we're kind of at this point where we've installed Visual Studio. I've already done that. So what I like to do at this point is I like to pin this to my taskbar. So I'll go ahead and right click, pin to taskbar, and that'll just kind of keep Visual Studio down as an icon down here so that I can just open it. Like if I close it, well, it's an icon down here. And you can see I got this purple one, which is Visual Studio Community. And I've got this blue one, which is Visual Studio Code. Okay, I've got my browsers here. Okay, I've got my email. This is File Explorer for Windows. And then these are just the open applications that I have. I've got Discord open. I've got some recording software open. And I've got a snipping tool that's open. Close that, don't need that. All right, so let's go back to, we've installed Visual Studio now. Next step is to install Balsamiq. Balsamiq is what's called wireframing. You're going to see me using Balsamiq throughout this course to basically sketch. It's basically a sketching tool that will allow you to sketch what you want the application to look like. So let me go back and click, hold down Control, so I don't close this. Hold down Control, download wireframes for Windows. Make sure to matrix read the privacy and the end user license agreement. Yep, I agree. Let's put that in my downloads. Happy wireframing. It's recommended only for me, so why? Let's just do it only for me. That's fine. I'll take your recommendation. Let's launch Balsamiq. There are other tools that wireframe, but this is just one that is easy enough to use. And we're going to have a license key that we're going to enter. And I'm going to highlight that and copy. So just highlight this license key that's ranking 2020. And that ends at the end of this year, at the end of 2021. So I'm going to copy the license key. And the way to add the license key, because this is a trial, it says 30-day left on your functioning trial. So let's enter a license key that'll give us more than 30 days. So let's click on register under help register. And let's paste, and that says okay. I'm going to click on register. Now I'm noticing my cursor is down a line, so I'm going to backspace, and I'm also going to We'll try that. Yeah, that space caused a mistake. So by backspacing, getting rid of that space, that fixed the little problem there. So now I've got 358 days left on a trial. So that'll get us through the semester just fine. Again, this is a tool that we will use throughout the semester. All right. And then second to last thing is to register at Github Classroom and create your GitHub repository. And so again, I'm trying to explain each piece along the way, what these things are. Github Classroom is going to be where you submit your work to me. Your work being your labs and your tests and your homework. It's also going to be where you can find the slideshows. You know, we're going to do lectures, and the slides are found on your GitHub repository, on your repository. So let's go ahead and hold down Control and click this link. Now, I already have an account, and I've logged in. Let me log out. Okay, so now that I'm logged out, it's going to probably look more like what you see. So I come here, it wants to log me back in. Keep me logged out. Most likely when you open this up, you're going to have to create an account. And you just create an account on GitHub first. And it's not letting me, actually, here's what I'll do. I'm not logged in on Edge. So let me copy this URL just to fake it out. Oh, now I've done it. I accidentally closed the tab. Let me go back into the document, sorry. Click, click, click. Setting up your environment. And here's the URL. I need to copy this. There we go. I'm going to paste it into here. And you're going to create an account. Now, for your username, this is for school. It says your username should be the following: your first name _ last name. But if your name is Bob Smith, Bob _ Smith is probably taken, so you can add a number if you need to. So Bob Smith 2021, whatever it is. Do not use a gamer tag or other alias, because what it boils down to is I'm not going to know your gamer tags. So make sure to use your name as your username. So you kind of finish up putting in your username and your password. Now here's what I will say. You will be using this username and password. So make sure you remember it. If you have to write it down, then you have to write it down. Do what you need to do so that you can use this username and password and not forget it. Okay, so very important step here when you're creating your account is to remember your username and remember your password. If another recommendation could be to use a password manager. Chrome has a built-in password manager. I believe Edge does also. Personally, I recommend a password manager called LastPass. And so here it'll tell you If you have, it's just a secure way, a secure way of dealing with many passwords on many sites. And as you might have saw there, I had a duplicate password, and so that's considered a security vulnerability. You know, most people have duplicate passwords and duplicate usernames, and so hackers, they're not going to hack your bank site because that's very secure. They're going to hack some little smaller website that's not as secure to find out your username and password. Then they're going to use that same username and password on your bank, because that's what people do, is they use the same username and passwords for multiple sites, and that makes them vulnerable. So using a tool like LastPass will help you kind of fix that, and then you get to use secure passwords like, here's a 53 character password that's got uppercase, lowercase numbers, and symbols, and I don't have to remember this. LastPass will remember this for me. So LastPass is awesome. Check out LastPass if you haven't. Once you've created your account, okay? Once you've created your account, you need to close that tab and then go back to this document. Hold down Control. That's what I keep forgetting to do. Hold down Control and open this link again. Now that you have logged in under an account, you're going to see your name in this list. Here's my name. I'm just faking this out as a student. Click your name in the list. Are you sure this is you? You say OK. And then you're going to click Accept this assignment. And then GitHub's gonna do some work. It says, we're configuring your repository now. This may take a few minutes. Refresh this page to see updates. Okay. You're ready to go. Your assignment repository has been created. So you click on this, and hopefully you do not get this error 404 that I got, because it logged me out. That was odd. Hey, I had to log back in, and here it is. Problem solved. This is what you should see. I don't know why. It logged me out at the wrong time. I was logging out earlier, and it decided to log me out at the wrong time. That's why it was getting the error 404, because I was logged out. Once I logged back in, you will have something that looks like this. By the way, if you're curious what your homework, not your homework, if you're curious how to be marked present today, you need to get to this step in the guide. So I'm going to put that in Discord, because every day I need to take attendance. For today's attendance, to be marked, I'll type this out, to be marked present for today's attendance, you need to complete the setup guide through the step on github.com that looks like this. Okay, so I'm going to show you a little picture here. I'm just going to copy this. So this is a step where you've created your GitHub repository. Okay, I'm not really seeing any questions or comments or concerns in the chat. So I'm just plugging along. We are almost done. We've got 2 more things to do. Hey Brandon, good point. Your name's not on there, but I can add you real quick. Let me add you real quick. All right, hey Brandon. If you refresh that page, you should see your name there. Yeah, Dylan, I'm gonna do that next. I'm gonna do that next. Okay, now what you have here on github.com, if you're looking at my screen, is you've got an online folder, okay? We use the word repository, but it's an online folder. Like folders on your computer, folders have folders in them, so they've got subfolders, or child folders, and they've got files. I mean, inside of a folder, you've got more folders and you've got files. So if I were to click on this repository and I were to go to lab, I'd see all these subfolders for different chapters, and I click on chapter 1, and I would see just a text file that's just a temporary file that you could, it's not really neat, it's not really important. So really what we have here is a folder structure. There's really nothing in that lab folder. But if I go into slides, well, here we got a bunch of PowerPoints. Okay, so if you ask the question, where can I find the PowerPoint slides? Well, the answer is on your repository. Okay, now this repository is online. It's on github.com. What we're going to do is we're going to copy it down to your laptop or to your desktop. We're going to copy this online repository down to your computer. Okay, so again, what we're doing, we've got these files and folders online, and we need to copy those files and folders onto our computer. Okay, now the first time you do this, the first time that you copy all these files and folders, right, in this online repository or this online folder, you're just going to copy it to your local computer, right? And they have a fancy name for that. They call it cloning, right? You're cloning your repository. You're cloning the folder. But if you think of a clone, it kind of makes sense, because what's going to happen is, what happens when you copy the folder from point A to point B, if you make a change, because right now it's online, and you're going to clone it onto your computer. And then what you're going to do is you're going to make changes. Maybe you do the first lab, okay? You're going to make changes on your computer. But because it's a clone, you need to then copy those changes back up to the online repository. Okay, so again, what we're going to do is we're going to clone this down, and then what you do is you wind up making changes on your computer, and then you take those changes that are on your computer and you make them go on your online repository as well. That's how you turn in your work. You turn in your work by taking the changes from your computer and putting them onto github.com. All right, so that's kind of the process. It might sound complex. It's really not too bad. In order to clone, what we're going to do is we're going to click on this green button that says code. And I'm just going to click on this copy button right here. Okay, that actually, this is a URL here that ends in .git. This is a kind of an internet path to my online repository. Okay, you could just click on this, and that's to copy. Now, the question that you have to answer is, where do you want your coursework to go on your computer? Okay, and if you open up your C drive, okay, there's all these folders here where you could put your schoolwork. You know, a lot of people are just going to put it on the desktop. Okay, but you might, instead of just putting it on your desktop, you might want to put it inside of your documents. Tried playing Call of Duty. This is no fun. Did some cryptocurrency mining. Anyways, you're kind of seeing what I have in documents. It doesn't matter. For the sake of this example, I'm just going to clone to my desktop. If you right click on desktop and you have Tortoise Git installed, you have to have Tortoise Git installed. You're going to see this option for Git Clone. Now you might get prompted here. Tortoise Git needs to know your github.com username and password. I didn't get prompted, so I'm assuming it already knows my username and password. But you're going at some point it's going to ask you a username and password. It might, if I click OK here, really all you do is you click on Git Clone. If you have this URL already copied, like I demonstrated, to click on that button. And here's the URL that ends in .git. That's the internet URL, and then this is your local path to your repository, to your folder. That's going to be on your desktop. I'm going to click OK. That's all you got to do. Just click OK. It's going to go through this process. There's my username and password. Okay, now my username is EA Gudmestead, and my password is in my credential manager. I'm just going to copy my password because it's some crazy password. I don't know what it is. My LastPass generated it. So I'm going to click on login. And this is what I said. Definitely don't forget your username and password. My username is EA Gudmestead. And my password okay, we're good. If you get past the username and password, it will not say login failed. It'll do this. It'll kind of go through this process of downloading to your local computer. And then you'll get a success message. So ultimately there were 1,242 files and folders. So that's how many folders and files you downloaded. Just over 1,000. Now I have this folder on my desktop. Right? So what you have is you have an online copy of this folder and you have a local copy of this folder at this point. What we're going to do is we're going to make changes to the local copy. We're going to make changes in here. Like maybe we go into this lab and add some files in here that we're going to work and learn on. And then what you have to do at that point, once you make changes, is you have to get those changes back onto your online repository to turn them in. So that's the workflow. That's the process. We're not doing that quite yet right now. Okay. So that is finished right here. And all that's left, this last step, is to install IO Gear docking station drivers. Now, if I can explain this, when we come into school, I have docking stations for you to plug into. And what that allows you to do is kind of plug into the hardwire network connection. So you could be hardwired at school instead of being wireless. Again, hardwire is superior to wireless. So that's a good thing. It also gives you an extra monitor. So you can have dual monitors when you're at school. During non-pandemic times, we're a little less concerned about keyboards and mice being shared. So we would have a keyboard and a mouse. Anyways, a docking station kind of gives you all these peripherals, if you will, for your laptop. And so the docking stations are nice. In order to use the docking stations, you need to download the drivers for the docking stations. And so you hold down Control, click on this link. I know that I am Windows 10 64-bit, so I'm going to click on this link right here. Again, I downloaded this back in November, so I'll just re-download it. From this point, let's go ahead and extract these files. I don't want to run a setup executable from within a compressed folder. So I'm going to extract this so that I run my setup in a non-compressed folder. And you can just right click and click open, or you can click run as administrator. Basically the same thing if you're on an administrator account on your computer. And it tells me that I've already got this installed. I did not uninstall this, but you run through the install process, you accept all the defaults, and you're done. All right. So that's the software that is needed. It is a lengthy setup process, so if you're not quite done yet, that's okay. You can continue, and you can always come back and refer to this video. But I wanted to record this, so I've done just that. It's about an hour in length, and this is the main software we'll use this semester. And I will stop the video here and get that on YouTube.